All right, page 2 on your quiz. I just a few minutes ago went through the whole process of making a video key for page 2, only to realize I apparently had pressed the wrong button or something because it did not record. So I do not have enough patience or time to go back through it. However, I will show you my answers and what I got in showing my work and go through one of the completing the square ones with you. Okay? Because they all work the same way. Here are numbers 8 and 9. Number 8. First thing we're going to do is it said find the 0, so I'm going to set it equal to 0. The first step in completing the square, which I am doing because it's the only way I know to solve if there is an x that's not squared. Remember earlier we solved some that had the only x's were squared. Right here, I said if it's like that, where all your x's are squared, you can solve by taking the square root. This is not like that. We have a linear term, meaning an x to the first power. I can't solve this by taking the square root. Not now, anyway. Only if I put it in complete square form can I do that. So that's what I'm trying to do. First step is to keep my variable terms on the left here, or move them to the left if they need to be, and move my numerical terms over to the right. So I'm moving that 14 by subtracting 14 from both sides. When I do that, I always write a little answer blank on both sides because I'm about to have to put something in it. Here's how I figure out what to put in it. Go to that linear term, the plain x term, the number in front of x. Take half of that number, which gives me 3, half of 6 is 3, and then square it. 3 squared is 9. That's what goes in the blank on both sides. That will always be a positive number because we got it from squaring a number. So again, half of 6 squared gives me 9. Okay, now when I took half of 6, I got 3. It's going to turn out that every time when you're trying to write this in factored form, it will work out this way so that it's x plus half of this number. Okay, remember that this is the same thing as this. This is the factored form, meaning if I were to multiply it out using FOIL, I would get this. But it always is the case that when I take half of b, I'm going to get the number that goes there. And then when I square it, I get the number that I add to both sides. If b is negative, like down here, b is negative 24, then when I take half of it, I get a negative 12. Whatever the sign of b is, that's going to be what the sign is in my set of parentheses. And when I said b, I'm sorry, I was calling it the linear term earlier and I switched. The reason I'm calling it b is because this is how we think of a standard form of quadratic. Is that the a is the coefficient of the x squared, the b is the coefficient of x, and the c is just the constant term. So this is x plus 3 all squared, and over here negative 14 plus 9 gives me negative 5. Now as you can go ahead and see now, I went ahead and took the square root of both sides at that point because now all my x's are in something that's squared. So now I can take the square root of both sides. And when I do that, I need to make sure to get that plus or minus. Then I brought that negative out of the radical as an I. X plus 3 is what I get on the left. And then I'm going to subtract 3 to get x by itself. This little symbol here is showing that I'm going to, when I subtract 3 from both sides, I'm going to squeeze it in here in front of the plus or minus because we like to write this in standard form, okay, where it's a number plus or minus the other thing. So x equals negative 3 plus or minus I times the square root of 5. So you can go ahead and look at what I got for 9. See if you could follow along step by step and see what I did. And here's 10. Make that a little bit easier to see. 11 and 12 are finding the complex conjugate. Complex conjugate means you take your complex number and you change the sign of the imaginary part. Whatever it was, you change the sign to the opposite sign on the imaginary part only, not on the real part. On this one, that is the imaginary part, so I changed the sign. On number 12, here's the real part. Its sign does not change. Here's the imaginary part. Its sign does change. So that is page 2 in a nutshell.